Joining me now, first-class father, Tony Hawk. Welcome to First-Class Fatherhood.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, let's start here. How many kids do you have, and how old are they?
I have 4 of my own and 2 stepchildren. They are 26. One is 20 today, actually. 19, 17, 16, and then those are all boys, and my daughter is 10 years old.
Wow, very cool. What type of sports or activities were they all into growing up?
Well, they all played traditional sports for the most part, and they did soccer and they did baseball and stuff. But skateboarding was always around, and so they just sort of learned it by default. And now into their teenage years, that's basically their go-to activity besides surfing and snowboarding. And not because of me, really, because of their friends. A lot of the people around here, we live in Southern California, a lot of their friends skate, and that's sort of the activity that brings them together.
Yeah, very cool. Did you ever get involved in coaching at all when they were playing those other sports like soccer and baseball?
A little bit in basketball, yeah.
Okay.
And that was probably the sport I was best at growing up too, besides skateboarding, so I felt somewhat comfortable. With the other sports, I didn't feel like I had the chops to put them through any sort of routines because I didn't really know how to play myself that well.
Yeah, I kind of do the same thing myself, especially with soccer. I coach them till they're about 6, and then I let them go and let the real people that know what they're doing take over.
Yeah. I mean, you can help them to a point, but if you really don't know the moves, then it feels kind of silly.
Yeah, that's true. All right, maybe for the 1 or 2 people in the world that don't know, please take a minute here just to hit my listeners with a little bit about your background and what you do.
Well, I'm a professional skateboarder. I started when I was about 10 years old and turned pro when I was 14. That may sound amazing, but skating was a very small community, so it didn't take a whole lot to to rise above or to be considered a pro. And I've been doing it ever since. Had a lot of ups and downs through my career, but probably hit my biggest stride in the late 90s with the Tony Hawk series of video games and XGames and commercials and things like that, and still doing it at age 50.
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey that you've had. And skateboarding, we know it really wasn't very popular when you first turned pro. Who kind of influenced you at the onset of your career? Who did you kind of look up to and admire when you were just beginning?
There were a few people I thought that were pushing the limits of skating at the time. Not that they made a huge career out of it because it was sort of the right place, wrong time for them, but I would say Eddie Alguera was a huge influence on me because he was the most progressive skater at the time. And then the one who inspired me to really try to learn how to fly out of these swimming pools was Steve Caballero because he was the closest to my size when I saw him in magazines at the time. And I recognized something in him that I felt like, okay, I have his type of, I'm his size and he's flying. I want to learn how to do what he's doing.
Yeah, very cool. When did fatherhood first come into the picture for you, Tony? How old were you when you first became a dad, and how did becoming a father kind of change your perspective on life?
I was relatively young. I was 24 when my first son was born, and it changed my perspective in terms of really hustling to make a living, because at that moment in my life, skating had took a downturn, and it was really hard. It was challenging to make a living. There were very few options. And I felt like I had to hustle extra hard because now I had to provide for family. And it changed my schedule significantly. I think that was probably, that was the moment in my life when I realized I couldn't just sleep till whenever I needed to or wanted to. And I'd say ever since then, 26 years going, I've been getting up early ever since and really making the most of my time with my kids, especially in the morning before they go to school, and prioritizing my obligations to basically make sure that being a father comes first and that I can do my job second, or combine the two. Like a lot of times I'll go on a trip and take my family with me because it's sort of a paid vacation where, say, I'm going to an event in Sydney, Australia. I know that I can swoop them in on the travel, and as long as I meet my obligations there, we get to have family time for the rest of the trip.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And I know that you've been through several divorces, and because you're such a popular figure, they're high profile when this happens. How has the relationship been between all of your kids, and now also bringing new kids, with your new relationship, into the mix as well? How has that all been for you to handle as a father?
Well, it's always a challenge, obviously, but I think that I've learned a lot over the years, especially in the last 10 years, and come to realize my priorities and also just my being comfortable with myself and my level of intimacy and really being with the right person. And so I've come a long way. I mean, I went through a lot of chaos just because I can blame all kinds of distractions and stuff, but ultimately it was me that was to blame. And through this success and fame, things get weird. Yet you encounter challenges you never imagined that would ever come to light, or that would ever be imposed on you. And so I would say that I've really come to terms with being a more effective father, being more present, and being a better partner, being a better husband. And so, it is weird to live in public like that, but at the same time, like, I accept it. I accept my own faults, and I accept that what I was doing probably wasn't the best approach to being a husband or a father as well.
Yeah, well said. And I'm curious about this too, because I have 3 boys, and then I got my girl on the 4th try. If we didn't get her on 4, we'd have 5 by now. But what was sort of the changes or differences for you having all these boys and then now having the girl? What were some of the changes of that, or some noticeable differences for you as a father?
Well, the boys are always very active, and it was just sort of keeping them going and keeping them entertained with providing things to do or things for them and their friends to do. When I had my daughter, it changed dramatically because she just wanted alone time. She wanted very quiet time, and that was not what I was used to. I was used to the constant going and the sort of chaos of boys, and so it was fun, but also it gets very isolating, because then it's like, well, I need to be available to my other kids as well. So it was a little bit of a learning curve, and I had to sort of break her out of that mode after a while and introduce her to more of social aspects and really get her to appreciate all the people around her, and that has happened in the last few years.
Yeah, and I did see the video you posted there on Instagram about her coming out of her little fear of the skateboarding. Walk me through that. What was like the events leading up to that moment, and is she still hitting the skateboard?
Yeah, it's something that we were doing after school. I have a office with a little skate facility here in San Diego, and so she was asking about learning how to skate, so we would go there. That was sort of our quality time together. And then we went one day, and someone was skating the ramp that we usually skate, and she was a little intimidated and kind of didn't want to go out there with other people around, so we went behind it, and there's a little setup behind it that we don't usually skate. And I said, you could probably go in on this now, considering what we've been doing on this other ramp. And she kind of didn't believe me, and I went down holding her hands a couple times, and then what you saw in the video is the first time she did it without ever holding on to me. And it was very spontaneous. I think that's probably the best way that it could have happened, because we went there with great expectations. She might have been too scared.
Yeah, that was so cool to see. And I always love to ask dads about their discipline style, because I'm always curious about that, how they discipline their children. What kind of disciplinarian are you as a father, and has your discipline style changed over the years?
It's definitely changed. I think I've gotten more effective in terms of not ignoring problems, or not just trying to, like, I used to just try to distract them from certain things. Like, if they were doing something that I didn't want them to do, I would try to distract them with something else instead of really getting into the problem and trying to show them that this is not an appropriate behavior. And so I've gotten a lot better at that, and sort of pushing through the uncomfortableness of giving them that perspective. And I think it's really, at some point, it's explaining to them why this is not the way to do things, but also staying very true to not accepting it. And that's something that's really hard. I mean, that's one of the hardest things of parenting is when you got to stand your ground. Like, no, this is not okay, and this is not what's going on, and you need to stop it.
Yeah, I'm going through that myself as we speak here too with one of my children. Now you've had several top-selling video games, throughout the years here now with the mobile game out and everything. And that's another struggle for a lot of parents right now is the technology and the video games. Do your kids play your video games, or how do you kind of handle all the technology stuff, especially with your daughter?
Yeah, the kids definitely played our games growing up. My daughter she has gotten into video games, but she's more about Mario type of games like Mario Kart, Super Mario Brothers. And so that's been fun for us to share together to learn. Like we go through each of those games and try to figure out all the secrets and try to finish all the levels. And so we do that quite a bit together. It's more if they're with people, if they're in a social situation, I limit their screen time just because I want them to be present and not sort of looking down, distracted, even though they're in the same room. And that's something I got to work on with all of them. And it's just more like, look, we're here, we're all having dinner together, put the phones down.
Yeah, it's definitely something that we're all struggling with out here, especially as the technology gets more and more addictive each and every year. What do the holidays look like for you, Tony? Do you guys all get together, or do you visit the kids separately? Do you have a spot that you all go to? What do the holiday seasons look like for you?
We're usually here for through holidays, through Christmas, and then we try to take a trip together through New Year's. And let's see, the last time we went to I think we went to Fiji for New Year's. Sometimes we go to Mammoth Mountain, which is here in California. We have a place there, so if we're trying to get some snow, we'll go there. And we always just try to make sure we get a trip together because all of our kids are on different spring breaks through the year. So the only time we really have them is during all together is during the holidays, during the winter holidays, or in the summertime. But in the summertime, they're all scattered with other plans. Yeah,
okay. And how about, are you ready for that grandfather title yet? Anything look like prospects in the making, or are we holding off on that for now?
Well, that's not for me to hold off on, but I could see that couldn't be too far off, considering my son is 26 and he's a pretty serious relationship already.
Okay, very cool. Well, you've had so much success already in your career. You're a legend in the skateboarding community. What kind of goals do you have for yourself for the future? What's next for Tony Hawk?
Honestly, I really love what I do. I do a lot of still do a lot of skating. I do a lot of speaking engagements, and I think what's next is for me to sort of harness in my schedule a little more so that I can be available, because we have 2 kids in college. We have one on the way this next semester, and then one going next year. So we are about to sort of, almost all the kids are going to be gone, and I would really like to be around for those last few years.
Yeah, okay. All right, last thing I'm going to hit you with here, Tony. I love to ask all the dads that I get on the podcast, what type of advice do you have for that new father or for that about-to-be dad who's out there listening?
It's going to be crazy and overwhelming, but it's going to be the best thing you've ever done.
Yeah, very good. I love the advice. Tony Hawk, I got to say thank you so much for spending this time with me here on First Class Fatherhood.
Sure thing, man. Thanks for having me.